Ooh, yeah! I am under attack! There are a lot of techniques in miniature painting. The scientific term is metric fuckton. But when it's all boiled down, it's all fundamentally the same thing. Paint goes here, repeat. And even when we apply a new concept or new approach, it's still relatively the same thing. What we're going to be doing in this video is basically the same as every other video on the channel in the same way. The difference is, instead of trying to make a light interaction represent either an OSL or an ambient light setting, I kind of just want to make it look like those color shifting car wraps. First things first, we need a model, and this is actually where the entire idea came from. Now, I used to have a lot of 2nd edition Marines, but they've all been lost to time. So I grabbed a Horus Heresy kit, put some Primaris shoulder pads on it, and made somewhat of a vintage modern Marine. Also, little tip, if you're doing sub-assemblies, you can glue things onto a frame with super glue. It's weirdly not that super. A little dab will keep it there while you're working, and then you can just crack it off. For everybody that keeps asking about paint lists, I do put them in the description, but also it's the same as every single video ever. Also, airbrush medium. Great medium. Even though I'm using Army Painter, Duncan will appreciate the 2 thin coats. Some people have a little bit of an issue thinning down paints because when they go for the actual application, it gets patchy. Which honestly isn't that big of a deal. The whole idea here is getting a smooth, flat application, not a first-time coverage. It's a little bit more important to be texture free with no clogging of the details than it is just to save, 3 seconds? Lay down a base coat, make sure it's nice and flat, come back and put another layer on it once it's dry. If you've been here before and caught just about any video on this channel, you'll know my usual blending technique starts with a 50-50 mix to make a half step between colors. This is what happens when you don't. Thinning also doesn't require any kind of crazy mix. All I'm doing here is just dampening the brush with medium and then loading up with Wicked Pink. The goal for thinning paints is literally just getting the paint off of the brush. But some colors just don't play well with others. I love Wicked Pink, but just like every other pink paint in the world, it's not the greatest at coverage. Even though it probably is the better of the bunch. So yeah, going over an intense vivid blue, it is a pretty hard color to get straight out of the gate. This isn't true for every paint and every color, but you will come across it fairly frequently, especially paints that don't have quite as strong a coverage. So to get around some of these coverage limitations, mix it with something that does cover well. In this particular case, I'm going to take the Wicked Pink and mix it in with our base layer, which is Imperial Blue. If you take whatever color you started with, mix it with the color that you wanted to end up with, you're going to get a hue that's somewhere in between. This is going to make it a whole lot easier to step up and blend back without anything that's too wild or too garish. There are some painters out there that are a little different, like Flameon or Flameon. I'm not sure which is which. Is it Alex is on fire or Alexis on fire? Either way, their technique generally revolves around painting down white or just painting down a block of color and then coming back in to blend whatever's next to it. Whichever way works for you, do that. This one just happens to work for me. But either way, you'll probably need that 50-50 mix. Even though we ended up going back and doing the whole half-step blending thing, it'll still leave layer lines. So the question is, what do donuts, this model, and your mum have in common? Glazing is another technique that a lot of people struggle with due to misinformation. Don't worry about the consistency itself. You're not actually looking for something that's going to pour like skim milk. Instead, look for the transparency, because what we actually want to do is alter the level of opacity. To start feathering out these layer lines, all I was actually looking for is a slight tint of blue that's just going to start to blur that transition. The skim milk thing is for hacks. Know how we ended up going back and doing the whole half step thing because the base layer was a little too wild for the pink? Well, my funk soul brother, check it out now. Funk soul brother, right about now, we can get straight back into that Wicked Pink. First thing we should be noticing here is the coverage itself is very similar to what we did the first time. The difference being, since we have that half step, it doesn't actually matter as much. That gradual change and the pink being mixed in and softening out that blue gives us a little bit of a grace period to start building up that Wicked Pink on. And even though I'm pretty set in my own ways and very comfortable using the Synthwave palette, this is true for just about any color that you want to throw down. What quite a few people don't get about this channel is I use this palette because I like it. But every technique, concept and idea can be replicated with any palette you want. These are all universal ideas and techniques. If you went from brown to yellow, you'd be on the path to gold. If you went purple to red, you're in Blood Angel territory. Green to brighter green, you're back to salamanders. You can take anything that you see or find on this channel, flip out the colors, and you've basically just got the technique left. No lies detected in that intro when I said basically everything is the same. Even though this is a bit of a weird idea being based on color changing car wraps, it doesn't actually change the fundamentals. Color shift paint and zenith shift car wraps don't particularly behave the same way as we think any other reflective surface would. But to represent it on a model, we're going to do the exact same thing that we would do if we were trying to represent a reflective surface. Which is why we're going to do the exact same thing that we always do and highlight inside of what our midtone was. You can think about it in the exact same way as you would paint an OSL. The big difference here is actually how we treated the blue. If you want to break it down into a standard lineal thinking the same way that we'd approach just about any other paint job, base, midtone, and highlight, the blue is our shadow tone or our base tone, and it's just taking up a little bit more space than it generally would. Changing the ideas of light placements, midtone placements, and even shadow placements can drastically change the outcome, even though, again, we're doing the exact same thing. For the highlight placement itself, again, I'm just going down the middle of all of that pink that we set up. I'm traveling down this line to create a little bit more cohesive of an idea of where everything is reflecting to. Usually we just go a little bit lighter to represent where the light's coming from, but in this case I want to emphasize the shape of where the color would be changing. But then go back to the same idea as typical highlighting where I start attacking all of those sharp edges. Zenith shift is a hard thing to replicate because it's all about the perception from the viewer. But miniature painting is a mix somewhere between imitation and animation. It doesn't always need to be photorealistic. Luckily, because I'd suck. With that one leg done, we're going to find the golden angle and use it as a keystone for the rest of the light placement. To find the golden angle, I'm just going to hold the model where that first line of pink would make sense to sit. And then using that as a basis, I'm going to follow across the other parts and cover the panels that I'd be directly looking at. And if you're going to ask what I did on the back, I did the exact same thing from the other angle. But if I was going to go 3 knuckles deep on this, I would actually pick 3 different viewing angles and do the exact same thing. So instead of creating a sandwich effect, we would essentially have 3 different viewing angles that would slightly overlap. It's a little bit more work, does need a whole lot more attention, but it's kind of worth it if you want to get to that kind of level. And now we're just going to do the exact same thing all over again. This video is going to do one of 2 things. It's either going to ruin every single miniature painting video that you watch for the rest of your life ever because you've realized that everything is exactly the same, or it's going to make something inside of your brain click and realize that literally everything in this miniature painting hobby is the exact same thing ever. The only time that things start getting weird is when you do something stupid like painting a model with Vegemite. And even then, to be completely honest, that whole thing was about building up in gradients and building up in layers. Even though Vegemite was the medium, there was still layering and glazing. And according to all known laws of aviation, there is no way a bee should be able to fly. Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off the ground. The bee, of course, flies anyway because bees don't care what humans think are impossible. Yellow, black, yellow, black, yellow, black, yellow, black. Ooh, black and yellow. Let's shake it up a little. Barry, breakfast is ready. Ready, coming, hold on a sec. Hello, Barry, Adam. Can you believe this is happening? I can't. I'll pick you up. Looking sharp. Use the stairs. Your father paid good money for those. Yes, you absolutely did just get B-movie script revised. Because honestly, I'm running out of ways to say that everything is always the same. Including these turquoise nonmetallics. But we're going to run through the motions anyway. For the base coat, Scarab Green. And instead of just going ham and coating everything, which is what we're doing anyway, I am going to use that black primer left in the recesses to set up basically an automatic black lining. We get the detail separation without any of the work, but if you do overspill, it makes it easier to clean up. Just come back in with a little black and a little line, you're done. Turquoise can be a bit of a pain in the ass to blend and get a smooth gradient with, but if you're not going into comp, it's not such a big deal. So here's where placement and intensity of contrast can do a whole bunch of the work for us. Deep Azure and Scarab Green is a massive value jump between. So we're doing that whole half step thing. But here's where things actually do get a little interesting. Because turquoise, I'm assuming, has a lot of white in its foundation, or at least it's very pastel and very creamy. Not creamy in terms of consistency, but the kind of color itself. It does behave a little bit differently when you apply it, and it has a very, very stark layer line. Even going back in with a glaze of Scarab Green, it's hard to kind of transition out. So we're going to use that. Everything is going to have a fairly wide jump of intensity. Moving into the pure Deep Azure, you can already see that there are 3 very distinct colors in this set. So if we can't smooth them all out, we're going to do something a little different. And that is to create visual confusion.
Instead of jumping up using the typical idea of shingles on a roof where you leave a little bit of the previous layer showing through, instead when we layer up, we're going to cover seemingly random points. So instead of setting a nice gradient going from Scarab Green to the half step into our pure Deep Azure, we are going to have Deep Azure covering some of that half step, but then also going directly across Scarab Green. The intensity and confusion is going to do a lot here.
Light, bright, and white paint suck to glaze, so we're skipping it, and instead just going to keep using that same idea of intensity of contrast to hide the sins.
Because Scarab Green and Deep Azure has such a wide step, we want to take that same wide step again with going straight to Aquamarine. And if you're thinking it looks a little bit rough, you're not wrong. But remember, if you're watching this on any form of screen, which is how I'm guessing you are, whether it be a phone or for some ungodly reason a TV, you were zoomed in like crazy. Now, you should have a fairly good reference point of something that's about 2 inches long. And in the hand, remember that's about how big these models are. So by the time you get down and have a look at these at real world scale, it's not as stark a jumps. At least that's what I'm going to tell myself so I feel a little bit better. This is a perfectly average paint job for the size. Moving into the highlights, we're going to continue with that visual confusion, but now we're going to start to frame things. While we're still layering up, we are going to be spending a little bit more time on edge highlighting. This will start to sharpen everything up, give us some detail separation, but continue that same idea of, basically we've made a camouflage. All of those colors have been jumping around and touching each other, creating visual confusion, and this kind of dials it all back into something that actually looks like something. And that's that.
There are a lot of big, bold, bright colors on this model already, so to set up a focal point, instead of just being a lighter blue and pink like we would assume a helmet would be, I found a banger squat head that looks like he's wearing pit vipers.
Because we have a mustache, beard, glasses, and hair, there's a lot of cranial accessories. AKA, a lot of shit on his head. And believe it or not, these are actually kind of perfect bare heads to try and practice skin tones on. Instead of trying to make the whole thing look and feel like it's actual skin on a little guy, we just need the inference that there's a skin there. Also yes, potato cam activated. This is my usual skin tone recipe and you can find a full video here. But it basically just runs through from Terrestrial Titan, Topaz Skin into Opal Skin. And of course all the 50-50 mixes in between. And we're going to be doing this volumetrically, treating it like any other shape. So I'm just going to imagine this as a cylinder with a few little sticky outy bits. Which means we're going to start off with Terrestrial Titan, and as we work up in all those lighter and brighter mixes, bring it all towards one physical point. And then for the nose, lips and cheekbone, just highlight like you would any other detail that's sticking out. That's good enough for me.
I was a little conflicted with the beard and hair color. Painting it like a silver fox fossil that had survived the 80s electronica scene was the idea and it would create a focal point. But if it were black hair, it would have been Randy Savage. Next time we do this, I'm sculpting a mullet.
Because we wanted that little bit of a focal point, I did decide to go with a grey beard. But to start infusing a little bit of colour, I didn't actually use grey. These are all cool tones. I started off with a base coat of deep ocean blue, and then just mixed a little bit of the aquamarine because it was already on the palette. That little bit of cool contrast against the warm skin, that's what actually makes it feel a little bit more neutral but interesting.
Yeah, it's back. You know what time it is.
The cream rises to the top. In running with that same idea as focal points, I wanted to make these glasses really stick out. So for that, we're going to go with an altered version of the Hotline Miami scheme. Starting with Diabolic Plum, the glasses are just getting an entire coating. Then we're going to bring in a little bit of that wicked pink. To start with, I did glaze it down a little bit just to give us somewhat of a transition, and then went whole hog. The placement for this one is a little bit different, but it's also fairly important to get that vibe of Pit Viper glasses. Because again, we're working with a color shift, we are stepping up in single directions. So after the wicked pink, we went straight into burning ore and then started highlighting with Moonbeam Yellow. Again, this is stupid tiny, so the layer lines being a little bit more stark, it actually helps out better. And then, because we wanted that color change and some to look like it's one of those wraparound glass lenses kind of thing, did the exact same thing on the other side, with just a little edge highlight of yellow straight across the top. To cap off the whole vintage modern feel, yeah, we had to go with that green base. And for the back, remember this is a YouTube video. I could have spent an extra 10 minutes finishing it off, but I didn't. Plus, let's be honest, this is the point that everybody wanted to see anyway. As always, a massive thank you to InGames, the Army Painter, and the best Patreon members in the world. Big love, you filthy heretics.